This is what will be closed when it moves to Alabama. And that's not going to take very much longer. Maybe within another year or so, this place is going to get mothballed. There's going to be another factory in Hamilton that has closed as a result of free trade. And that's what NAFTA has brought to us. That's what free trade has brought to us is plant closures, turning Hamilton into a rust belt, and putting people out of work, out on the street, and homelessness and hunger and poverty. And we got to fight back as a labor movement and do something about this before it's too late.
And how long has this plant been here?
This plant's been here for 100 years. 100 years. And because of greed and a lack of government action too, to prevent this kind of thing, a factory that's been around for 100 years is going to close. They make an excellent product. It's sold all over North America. There's tons and tons of rail cars in the United States that were made in this factory. And these people are going to wind up unemployed without jobs. These are the real faces. These are the people. These are people who are supporting families. These are jobs that are supporting the businesses in our community. And they're being cast aside like they're nothing, like it means nothing. And we're disgusted about it. We're going to do something. We're going to put together some sort of an awareness video and get the story out and create some heat on these people that are greedy and don't want to do what's right and what's moral, because it's sickening. It's really sickening. US Steel Canada works. Hamilton works now. That was the largest factory in Hamilton. There's the three flags I was telling you about earlier. Basically, this factory once employed 22,000 people in this community. And now it's been whittled down to 1,700, and they're slated to probably cut more. And at one time they were producing 3 or 4 different product lines, and now they've been reduced to just a slab steel maker. So this place is in peril too, and this is like the main industry in Hamilton. So if this place goes down, it's going to be devastating for the community. It's going to be devastating on a scale that Hamilton's never experienced. And this factory's been around for 100 years. There's a factory there that was closed, J.I. Case. They were a farm implement factory, and they closed several years ago. There's a small part of it that's still running that isn't called J.I. Case anymore. And in fact, I'll take you down there since we're driving down the industrial parkway here. And it's actually one of our units in Local 16506 of the Steelworkers. It's called North American Tillage Tool. So it's an old building. It employs, I think, roughly about 100 people now, give or take. I'm not sure exactly, but pretty close to that. And believe it or not, amazingly, they're actually one of the places that's hiring. And when the word went out that this place, North American Tillage Tool Company, was hiring, it was people who were at the adjustment committee looking for jobs ran out of that office like somebody had let off a bomb in there to run down here and put their resume in here to get these good paying jobs. They pay $25, $26 an hour. Those kinds of jobs today, to find a job is very difficult. To find anything that replaces the kinds of good paying industrial jobs that you lost. You know, now people are being pushed toward temp agencies, jobs that are paying $10 an hour, $12 an hour, no benefits, odd hours, all kinds of abuses, getting ripped off in your pay because they're unregulated. It's a real problem. And our provincial politicians who should be doing something about this aren't doing anything, and they don't seem to have any regard for the poor and disadvantaged in our community. And we got to raise awareness about this and start making more noise and start putting more pressure on these people to do what's right for the people and for the workers.
A steel plant that used to be called Stelco, and then on November 1st, 2007, it was bought by US Steel. So what we were talking about was that 5.5 years ago, when I first took over, we were facing very serious problems in that the company was in financial difficulty, and the 300 of the largest pension plans, including ours, were in big trouble, and the company's across Canada were trying to get out of their obligations, and in the United States. So what they had done in the United States, the steel companies there, they had used bankruptcy protection to get out of their obligations to the workers. In particular, there were about 240,000 pensioners that got shafted with this bankruptcy protection and had their pensions reduced anywhere from 10 to 70%. So our company at that time was called Stelco. They saw that and they were in difficulty, and so basically they wanted to find some way to have the same thing happen here. So it was a huge offensive was launched against us, and we were faced with the problem of, okay, how are we going to deal with this? So the first thing we did is we started a Thursday, we call them the Thursday meetings. Every Thursday at 3:30 we get together where what happens is I give a report, the president gives a report of what's happened in the last week, and provide information, and then we open it up for the members to discuss what, basically based on the information or what we knew, what we should do. Because what was lacking, in, as far as I'm concerned, in the workers' movement was a mechanism for the workers to actually discuss. Because unfortunately in the labor movement, it's still, the view is still that there's the leaders and they're the ones that lead, and the workers, they're just supposed to follow. So we're not a big fan of that. We think the workers are the solution to it. They have to be part of that, so they have to be first provided with information and then provided a mechanism where they can actually deal with grappling what's the solution, what the union should do. So we've been doing that for 5.5 years, and we've always had at least 30, 40 members there, and at times it went up to about 400, depending on how controversial the time was and how big the issue facing us was. So we've developed this mechanism that, and so, you know, it's actually the workers that participate actually see it as their duty, their obligation to participate in the discussion, that they have to get up and say something. Now, certain times it's more important than others, you know, because if we're actually grappling with some problem, when we were in the bankruptcy protection, we call it up here the CCAA, which is similar to the US's Chapter 11. We were in the middle of that. Most of the time we weren't sure what we were going to do, how to proceed, and so if we didn't know, we didn't proceed. We just discussed it week after week, and then finally we worked out how we were going to come out of it. And to my knowledge, it's the first time, at least in Canada, that the companies weren't successful in using bankruptcy protection to shaft their workers. We came out of it unscathed, and I mean, that's a whole different story. But I think the lesson for us is that you have to, in order to be successful, you have to the workers have to participate in the solution. And that's more, you know, like I appreciate the media, the labor media, you know, there's a lot of it out there. People are making a lot of effort, but it's also important to the workers have to actively be discussing these things amongst their peers in their circles. So it's not just to be receiving, because that's, you know, the powers that be are much better at that than the labor will ever be. They've got more resources, they've got more, they just overwhelm you. The thing we found here was it was that real life participation in these meetings that was, for us, it helped us neutralize the media here in Hamilton. Because the logic is this, that first of all, those 100 workers that are participating, that have the information and participating, well, they all go out into their circles and discuss the issues, whether it's in the workplace or whether it's out amongst their pensioner groups or whatever. And it was a very powerful mechanism. And so in spite of what the news media did, the television, the radios, and the newspapers, they had a big offensive to try to convince the people of Hamilton and the workers, our workforce, that the union should give in, they should participate in this bankruptcy fraud and all this. They could never break that, the power we had. So that was this group, this core group, and their circles, that was what carried it in this city. So that's what I would say. Like, so the media, I mean, it's important for getting. We have our own video people. Mike's one of them that helps. There's others. Some people have made slideshows. They've done different things. Then we have our own poets that have come out of this Thursday meeting. When we started, we didn't have a poet. Now we have a poet, and he's, but it's and all sorts of people in this group have all sorts of different skills, and they step forward when it's necessary. So that's what we've learned here, and it's served us well. Unfortunately, I don't know that it's happened anywhere else. We encourage everywhere we speak in the labor movement, whether it's at the Canadian Labour Congress or the OFL or different, we sort of give example. We sort of say this is what we're doing. There's a lot of resistance in the labor movement to doing that. We have our theories as far as why, but that's as far as I'm concerned, that's what's the new that has to be developed. The workers our logic is we're the ones that produce the steel. We create the wealth. So we're definitely capable of running our own affairs and then eventually running the country. Now that's a big step because unfortunately the labor movement still sort of feels that we have to have some savior, some Barack Obama come in and save us. We're incapable of doing anything. Anyways, to break that, I think this is sort of what we're doing here is one of the models of how this should be dealt with.
Canada is being affected, the whole world is being affected by this financial collapse, and basically deregulation of the financial system, the whole economic policies have led to a economic catastrophe. And in the United States, millions of people are going to be unemployed. They're talking 10%. The capitalists don't want to invest the money. They don't know the value of their money anymore. And they've gave $750 billion to the banks to give credit to people, and they're using the money to buy other banks, not to help give credit to people. Do you think this raises the issue of workers running things, or the systemic problems, fundamental systemic problems that are developing?
So I'll just give you the answer that I'll give you what our discussion was yesterday at our Thursday meeting. And that came out of a quote that one of our members of our workforce, who doesn't come to to our Thursday meetings, he was quoted in the paper when they were writing an article about the crisis now coming into the steel business, that the steel companies their customers can't get credit to buy steel. This has caused a crisis. So his response to probing for the encouragement by the media, which they tried for 2 weeks to get me to say, and we wouldn't say it, was that the whole world is collapsing around us, and it's time for them to start loosening up the credit and giving credit, and so that these capitalists can start buying steel, and that's going to solve the problem. So our discussion was, there's 2 points about that. One is we said that, well, first of all, when you get union people and union officials especially start talking about the whole world is collapsing around us, then we call that the Chicken Little syndrome. That the media wants to promote that amongst the people, that the whole world sky is falling, the whole world's collapsing, and we have to go do something. And so then the second sentence of the quote was that it's time for them to start loosening up the credit and all this. So our response to that was that, well, it's precisely them that are the cause of the problem. And if the workers are reduced to relying on them to come in and save us, then there is no, what's the phrase? There's no cure for the gods of plague. That the workers can't rely on them to save us. But of course, that's the dominant ideology out there from that $700 billion, bailout and that whole shenanigans, which at the end is going to just enrich the them even further. So what the end of our presentation was, in our leaflet that we put in the plant, was that this is again, so now the problem is there for us again. So either we can wait for them to solve it, or we have to sort out what we as workers are going to do to solve it. So it does, I mean, it definitely puts it on the agenda, but again, are the workers conscious enough, you know, nationally or internationally or in the States or here in Canada to take that up? I haven't seen it yet. Like, all I've seen as far as is what these unions are saying, you know, who sort of speak for the workers, and they're all excited by Obama, and they're all excited by all this hoopla and all this stuff as this is going to solve the problem. So they're right back into relying on them to come and save us. So we're not big fans of that here, that we didn't rely on them to save us during our bankruptcy. We organized our own forces to stop that. So in our small world here, you know, we were successful. But anyway, the bigger question is on the agenda.